born in Hungary, south of Hungary. Excuse me, maybe you turn it off for a minute. What was it? The children's block in Auschwitz. When we arrived, I came from Hungary. And we have been in the ghetto. First of all, they have removed everything valuable from us, gave us a long list to my mother. My father was in a work camp for men. And they gave my mother a long list of the valuables to keep it and not to lose it, so we can go in and claim it when we come back. They gave us all kinds of nice little stories, so we won't get too much disturbed. Then again, I knew very little about politics, except that I overheard from the adults. It was not my business at the time, really. It was not something that children sat in and discussed. So they were telling us also that we will have to go to Germany, and we all will get a little house, so the families will be together, and we will have to work for the Germans, because all their people, or most of the men, the able-bodied men, are in the front. So, it sounded quite reasonable to me anyway. I don't think that anybody really liked the idea, not the adults anyway. But it sounded, to my mind, it sounded quite reasonable. And so we had to sew on the yellow star on the outside clothing, 6 centimeter by 6 centimeter. And then a couple of weeks later, we had to go to the ghetto. We could take a bed for each, and one table and some chairs to sit down. And they took us to the railway workers building where the railway workers used to live, and they were put out of there. That was next to the railway. There was only one gate, so that was easily kept shut, that nobody will go out. And we were placed in a 2-bedroom apartment. My great aunt and her husband, 1 bedroom, my mother and us, my brother, sister, and myself. In the other bedroom, shared kitchen and shared bathroom. And to my mind, I was always a great reader and always looking for the adventure that eventually I will be in. And I thought, the beginning, it sounds like the adventure that I was waiting for. And we had quite a good time in the ghetto, with children, that is. We got some supplies, and we could take from home whatever we could, non-perishables, like just jam, and some flour, and some, which we could, support ourselves, and they were giving us a few little things, like potatoes and things like that, for every family. So we children had a good time, I would say, because we had to go out to the strawberry fields. That was the season for strawberries, with the guards, and we had to pick strawberries. And of course, we ate and picked and ate. It was good fun, all the children together. And because you are not together like that in school, I went to a girls' school, boys went to the boys' school, so in the ghetto, really, we were just all a big bunch of kids. In the evenings, we used to play table tennis and all kinds of games, And it was something that we really didn't know what is coming. We couldn't have known what is coming. The adults, of course, going around with long faces and, sighing here and tears there and all that. And that my father wasn't with us, that made our life even harder. Our mother's life really made ours. When my father left us, he said that he leaves me in charge to take care of the family. And I thought, well, I hope that I will stand up to it, to his trust, and we were very close, my father and I. I was the firstborn. And we were in the ghetto for about 3 weeks. And then one morning, we all had to go to the big yard. That was a building in a U shape, and a big yard in the middle. And we all had to go there and just take a small bag. My mother had a small bag, and put in, just if we had some biscuits or something to eat, and just one change of underwear and things like that. You couldn't carry, for 4 people, you can imagine a small suitcase. So they said nothing, why, what, whatever. And we had to go through the guards there, and earlier, before we went to the ghetto, everybody could keep a watch, a wristwatch, and wedding rings were left for the women. So there was a table, 3 men sitting around it, and the guards around. We had to go next to the table, past the table, and that's when they took off the wedding rings and the watches from everyone. And my grandmother couldn't take off hers because she had a small stroke earlier on, and her ring finger was bent, so they sewed it off, to take it off. And from there they took us to the military academy, which was also not very far from the railway. Of course, the horses were not there, neither were the cadets who normally occupy the place, but there was straw in the stables, and that's where we were supposed to stay for the night. Next morning, we had to walk down probably 100 meters, maybe 150, to the railway, which was standing on an off rail, and it was good strain, and of course the engine, and they pulled open the iron doors, and we just had to go onto it. So we all climbed up, and we must have been about 70, 75 people into one wagon, which of course meant that it had been only standing room there. We couldn't move. And one classmate and my sister Evie and myself, we stood sort of in a little round. And my brother, who was about 7.5, was not 8 quite, stood between us, between our legs. And when the wagons were full, they closed the doors, with clangor, and the iron bars across, and those wagons had just tiny little windows high above. Just if I stood on tiptoe, I could see through. And a few old people were sitting with their backs to the wall of the wagon. Or they were very sick, or they were very old, or whatever. And about 3-4 hours later, the journey started. And we were standing there talking, young girls could talk about all kinds of things, about the school, about the, what would they say if they see us, and, our friends, because I didn't go to a Jewish school, so we had all kinds of friends. And they were very surprised, actually, beforehand when they saw me with a star, because they didn't know that I was Jewish. None of us looked Jewish. My whole family were blondes and blue-eyed. And the features, neither, would have passed easily for Germans, except the boys, which, they usually proved it if they caught a Jew. He had to drop his pants to see whether he's Jewish or not, because nobody else had circumcision, only Jewish men or Jewish children, boys. So anyway, we were standing there, and of course my brother started, he's hungry. We had nothing much. My mother had a few biscuits in her bag. So, a few hours later, she gave us each a biscuit. So Tommy was moaning, he is hungry, so I gave him my biscuit. I was not so hungry, I gave it to him. And he was so miserable, poor little boy. Then he wanted to go out to play. And we told him that he can't go out and play because none of us can go out of there. You know, there's no such thing. And he wanted to eat. So, you know, slowly, the few biscuits were gone. The next day, there was no biscuits left. There was nothing left. We got some drinking water. We stopped at one stage. And at a small station somewhere. And some people had to get down with buckets, fill it up for drinking water. And some other buckets were used for waste, which was, you didn't really feel like wanted to go to the bathroom. I mean, it was just too public, and it was just sort of, no, anyway. So everybody had a bit of drink, and we stood, and we talked, and we were getting very hot. So many people in the wagon, and when we came from the ghetto, we put everything on. I had on a dress and a jumper and my winter coat and my best shoes and everything. So slowly we started to peel off things, you know, this schoolmate and my sister and myself, everything we just dropped between our legs. And Tommy went on top of it and fell asleep. And we were just, you know, we were talking, and every time I thought, well, one day and one night is gone. Maybe tonight, maybe today, we'll get there. And the train just was, you know, the good old-fashioned steam engine, just puffing away, and you couldn't see out much. As I say, if I stood on the tiptoe, I could see we were passing fields and faraway villages, and we were just going up north all the time, sort of north and north and north. And after about, you know, the first day is gone, the second day was almost gone, and we were all the time just going up north, and I thought to myself, that just doesn't fit, because somewhere we were supposed to turn to the west, towards Germany, because where I came from, Pécs, is absolutely on the south, near to Yugoslavia, the south of Hungary. So from Pécs, going up to Budapest, it's almost a straight line. So if we are going up north, around Budapest or somewhere around there, we should have turned to the west, towards Germany, Austria and Germany. But we didn't, we just went straight ahead. So the second day was gone, and we were standing. Occasionally our eyes closed, you know, sort of for a moment almost. I mean, you couldn't fall over because it was so stuffed and so close. Everybody was close to everybody. And the third morning, the situation didn't change. We stopped again in the morning, again some more water to drink, and empty the buckets. And, you know, slowly the day was going and going. And we thought, where are we going? We are going up to Sweden or something. You know, where are we going so long? And it takes so long. And the third evening, it must have been around, no, I mean, it was pitch dark outside. And the train slowed down, and then it sort of gone backwards and forwards, you know. On the sidings, it moves this way and that way. But it must be, maybe we have arrived. You know, why would it go from one, you know, one siding to the other siding? And eventually it stopped, and you could see out of the window big, you know, fire lit all along the train. It was like pyres, you know, burning. Once the train stopped, they pulled the doors open, and everybody out. After 3 days standing, and that was, you know, we were all stiff. We couldn't take anything. They said to leave everything in the wagon, just get out. So we went out. And what I think is what they took from the wagon, you know, small cases and everything, was all thrown onto the pyres, you know, burning all along the lines. But once we got off, we were divided. The older people, little children with their mothers went to the right, and others to the left. Younger women, middle-aged women without small child, and of course the older children like myself. So we went to the left. I never said goodbye, I never waved, it was such a chaos there. The Germans, the Nazis, the German soldiers in uniform, they stood there laughing their heads off, hanging on to their Alsatians, and the Alsatians were going berserk. So many people suddenly, that I was not afraid of them because we had Alsatians at home, so it was not a matter of that they frightened me very much, but the whole scene was quite macabre. Must have been already midnight or whatever it was. It was very late. And all I could think of is just to lie down, and not even the eating, just to lie down, just to have a sleep or something. And so one after the other we were pushed into a big hall, a very large hall. So there were the younger women, middle-aged women, not very old, but probably the cutoff might have been around 50, I don't know, and the younger girls from 10 up, So they called out that the 10 to 16 on one side and the other woman on the other side in the hall. And then we were shouted again. It was always shouting to undress, put our clothes so that we will remember where we put them, because we are going to have a shower, and so we will find our clothes. It was all along they were lying to us, I mean, we believed it. What else would you believe? So we put down our clothes. My sister and I, we put it into one heap, next to the wall in a certain distance from a certain thing, just so that we remember. And there we stood in our underwear, screaming again, everything off, everything off. So we took everything off, and for young girls, for adults too, it was not a time at the time that you paraded around in the nude. I mean, it was not done, and it was quite embarrassing. Anyway, we took everything off, and, stood there, and then the girls from the 10 to 16, the children, they were called, and in a goose fire, we had to enter a room which was divided into 3-4 small cubicles. So I went into one, had to sit on a barber's chair. And the workers there were Jewish, probably Polish, because I would think that they were there for so long. The few who survived, I suppose they were doing all the dirty work, and in stripy outfits, and of course the soldier, of course, guns and all. And I sat there, and this man came to me with big scissors. I had lovely hair, sort of half of my back was hanging down, very pretty, dark blonde. And the man came and grabbed the hair, and off it went. And I thought to myself, it's only the hair, it will grow. It didn't disturb me so much. I felt pity. And all my hairpins, because in the wagon, I pinned up my hair. It was so hot that, we just, whatever we could take off, we did, whatever we could do. So all the pins I was holding in my hand. And once he cut off most of my hair, he shaved my head. But with this cutthroat shaver, the old-fashioned with a handle. And he came near to me. I said, gosh, is he going to cut my throat? He shaved my head. Then I had to stand up, and then they shaved also pubic hair. And under the arm, I had nothing much. I was so blonde that I was practically invisible there. A lot of girls, dark-haired girls. They were my much more developed, maybe. Anyway, no, here, I don't know where my sister was. Where was Amy? I couldn't see her. Because every cubicle, just one person. And somebody was cutting the hair, and somebody, a soldier or maybe two. And from there, we were pushed into another very large hall. And I didn't know where my sister was. I couldn't see her. And this very large hall slowly filled up after everybody was shaven, But first, that was the children from 10 to 16 was dealt with. And it was a very large hall. It looked like, I thought it will be the shower, a lot of little rosettes up high, and a lot of pipes running around all over the place. And we were standing there, and then finally they closed the door again, the big sliding locks and the sliding bars on it. And suddenly the water came, cold water, of course. Oh, it was just beautiful. Oh, it felt so good, after all this travel, and you felt so awful. So maybe 5 minutes, not even that, we were standing under the water. The water stopped on the other side of the hall, the opposite side from where we came in. The doors opened, and we were again into a big room. The trestle table in the middle, big heaps of shoes against the wall, but it is in a mountain of shoes. The trestle table was full of clothes, and some of the prisoners stood behind it. But there was always the presence of the soldiers with the guns. And they gave everybody something to wear, We were dripping wet. And as I was standing there, I can hear somebody saying my name, Zsuzsi. It's Hungarian for Susie. Zsuzsi, Zsuzsi. I look around, and there is my sister. I didn't recognize her. She looks at me, she says, "It's you." I said, "Yeah." I said, "It's you." She was also very blonde, like a doll. She really was a beautiful little girl. I said, "I can't believe it." We just fell onto each other and started to laugh and started to cry, and, the relief of finding each other and the crying. How did we look? I mean, we looked like little boys, both of us. She's even smaller than I am, And so from then on, we hung on to each other, and we got some clothes, some rubbish, and we had to pick some shoes, but you couldn't find a pair. I mean, you had to be really lucky, like winning the lottery, to find in this mountain of shoes, 2 shoes that match each other. So, got something, it looked, similar. So that's what we had. We put on our wet bodies this one piece of clothing or whatever it was. The first time I got an enormous pajama top, a men's pajama top that was washed probably 1,000 times. It looks like any minute the wind blows and it will fall apart in the stripes, It was with washing it so much, and it was so used and all. And this was hanging down half my calf. It was so enormous and wide. I can't remember what they got, but it's all just junk, whatever they rescued from the others who went to the gas chamber. Once we all had our clothes and shoes and all, we had to line up in rows of 5, and it was really, really dark outside, and you could see the stars. I looked up and I said, "Wow, those are not the stars of home." Because from home, I remember we used to see I don't know what to call it in English. It's like a wagon with 7 stars, 4 stars and then 3 more. And it looks like a wagon pulled in the sky, the setup of those stars. And I couldn't see that. That was really a centerpiece of our sky. When I looked up, it was there. And we stood, the 5 of us, 2 girls from my class, my sister and myself, and somebody else, we made the rows of 5s. And we had to march towards some very faint lights. And one stage I thought to myself, what am I holding? You know, all my hairpins were clutched in my fist, hanging on to them, you know. And then I thought, God, it will take forever for my hair to grow out. So I started to drop them, and I thought, oh, it's like Hansel and Gretel. If I find those pins, I know the way home or something. So we arrived at the big gates. We looked up, and there was some light, you know, the very faint yellowish light, so throwing a bit of light around, and there were the gates of Arbeitsmacht free. Because we learned German in school, so I could speak a bit. I probably speak better now. Everything sunk in by now, that's why. And we were marching in. The first lot of fives, we had to stop at one stage. First lot of fives went into the block 8. And the second lot, myself and my sister included, went into 12. And we went in, and it was quite warm there. There was a big fireplace in the middle. I don't know how the other blocks were. And from the fireplace, a long extension in the middle of the room, fairly high. You couldn't sit on the top of it. It was not chair height, but higher. And we just collapsed next to it with our back to the wall of it, because the beds, the bunks, they were full of something horrible. We thought that skeletons, that they dug them out of the cemetery or something, and they were shouting, why did you come here? You'll never get out of here alive. But, I mean, we just sat down, Avi next to me, I'm sitting, we just sort of leaned on each other. In 2 seconds, we didn't, you know, we were dead to the world. So, early in the morning, which must have been a couple of hours later, we heard a commotion. All the skeletons were going out of the block. Probably they were taken to the gas chamber. And we were just sitting there, and we got something, I don't know what it was, something for breakfast, some horrible thing. Ersatz, everything, you know what ersatz is the replacement. We had, you know, through the times that I was there, ersatz jam and ersatz, you name it, because it was all made out of, I don't know, chemicals and sugar replacement and I don't know what. I mean, you got to like it after a while because there was nothing else. So, or you ate it, or you perished. So, we sat there for a while when the whole block was empty. We were told that 7 girls to every bunk. The bunks were 3 layers, and I thought, oh, there was a girl, you know, standing next to me. She looked very nice, and I got to like her straight away. She looked very nice and very bright. She was actually 2 years older than I was, and I said to her, you know what, let's continue to talk, because if it breaks, we'll break down. But if we are in the middle bunk, the top bunk might fall on top of us, because you could see it. The bunks were made out of planks with about a 2 centimeter gap between them. So you can imagine how very comfortable they must have been. But we got a horse blanket for under us and the horse blanket to cover us when we go to sleep. So 7 of us went up there. A friend, my very best friend from school, this girl that we just met, she actually came from the city that my mother went to school. So that was already a binding sort of a thing. And my sister and another girl that I knew from school, but we were not friends, and I don't know, some other girls. And slowly we placed ourselves. We stayed indoors all day long. And after a while I realized that we were in quarantine. And we were there really just to round up the numbers for the gas chamber. Because who will be sick and who will be destroyed first? The children, of course. The others, they could take some of them to work in the factories in Germany. And the very first lot, and that was the girl who was in my bunk, she was taller than I am, and she was a year older than I am, but she was quite a developed, attractive girl. In the very first selection, because we started to have selection, very first selection, she went, and some others, and I thought, oh, a lucky thing for her, you know, to get out of this place. But then we heard that this first lot were taken to the doors. But we were in there all the other times too, but we didn't go out to be counted, because that was the routine. Every morning, very, very early in the morning, it was still dark. It was still the dark of the night. So we had to file out, stand in fives, rows of fives. So the block, the head of the block, we called her couple, she could count us. And then all the other blocks, at the same time, they were also, the inmates were standing next to their block. They were also counted. And on the road, up on the top, where there were blocks of buildings on one side and the other side of the road. The soldiers stood there, and somebody big, I think, at one stage I have seen Mengele. And I thought, my God, he's like a film star. He was so handsome. And I thought, what is a man like that doing here? You know? Of course, the dogs. And the woman, you know, high-ranking woman, uniform, and the dogs, always the dogs. Not that we could go very, very far, because the fences were apparently electrified, so, you know, you couldn't go anywhere. And the first day when we went out, that's the second day in Auschwitz already, we went out very early, and as I say, it was very dark and it was very freezing. And I said, well, we are somewhere up north, I don't know where, but we certainly are not in Germany. We are somewhere up north, and that's where we were, north. And the cold, I mean, it was, I can't even remember, it must have been May or something. It should have been a bit milder. It was just freezing cold, and we were standing there in rows of five. We were counted and counted. On some occasion, it was over in 3-4 hours. Some occasion, it took 6 hours. Every time, it didn't tally. The couples had to go into the block, look into every bunk, under the bunk, and everywhere, because it could have been that somebody's sick and didn't get up to come outside, or count again, which happened often, that they just couldn't tally up all these people. I mean, nobody could escape. The two possibilities were somebody was lying in a cot, dead, or sick, and that was the only thing. But of course, as soon as that happened, they were taken away to the hospital. And the hospital was the last spot before you were taken to the gas chamber. That's where they collected them in the hospital. So next to our block, between our block and the other block, there was another big block that was the latrines, the toilets, the same size as the block that we stayed in, only it was rows and rows of holes. That after the counting, we had, I think, 10 or 15 minutes that we can run for the loo. And this is how we really got all our news, because from the other blocks, those women, they went to work, and they met men on the road. They were doing the road or something. They shouted to each other, or somehow we got all the news, what was going on through this. That was the latrine newspaper. So that was the morning, 15 minutes, that we could see other faces. And a lot of girls had an auntie there or a cousin there, you know, so they got the first-hand news, which we wouldn't have known otherwise. The first thing what hit me really when we were going and standing outside, this enormous chimney behind us, and I thought to myself, now I see, they will want us probably to work in the factory, but what are they manufacturing, I wondered, you know? And I was quite convinced and quite happy in whatever they want to, you know, ask me to do, I can do anything. I was always very self-confident in that. Just show me what to do and I'll do it. I said, what sort of factory? It was such a horrible smell. It filled your nose, it filled the air. It was, just horrible. And I was trying to think of what is the smell. And then I realized that in the city where we were, the outskirts, we passed it and it was the abattoir there. And that was the burning fat and flesh and you know, in abattoir they also burn the offals and things like that. So it smells like an abattoir. Then we got to know it, of course, that whoever went to the right of us, like my mother and my brother, my grandparents and everybody else, elderly, they were the same night, they were guests and then cremated. As you could see this chimney and the heavy smoke just rising and rising, and also little sparkly, the fire bits from it. And if the wind was sort of oppressive, it was just pushing down the smell, the smoke. And this was just a permanent fixture in our noses. And the whole, you know, after a few days, you just, I don't know, it was just the smell of the place, you know. So I knew it already, that my mother and Tommy and relatives, everybody gone there. And funnily enough, that I didn't, excuse me, I didn't feel anything. I was surprised at myself that I didn't feel anything, you know. The first few days we had a few girls who were going absolutely crazy, hysterical, and one of them kind of became a baby, sucking her thumb, wanting mommy, and so they were all taken away, but that lasted only 2-3 days. And we were getting our food. We were getting for breakfast some sort of a loose porridge of some sort. I don't know what it was. Never eaten anything even similar. And a loaf of bread for every bunk. And one of the girls had to cut it. So the capo's assistant, they always choose an assistant, of course, gave the knife, whoever was cutting, and so I thought I'll do a good job because there is no mistake. I am very exacting. So I became the bread cutter. And if somebody got the end piece one day, it was in rotation. The end pieces were in rotation. The bread was like a piece of brick in weight and in texture. It could have been a little bit softer, otherwise I wouldn't have been able to cut it. And there were all kinds of horrible things inside, you know. It was, I don't know, like you would feed the pigs, the horses, or whatever, little bits of wood, and probably it was very healthy, really, when you think of today's thinking of what you eat. Roughage, a lot of roughage, it was all roughage. And a horrible taste to it. And it tasted sweet. It tasted so sweet. And then, again, we got the news, why is the bread so sweet? Because they put bromide in it. It's tranquilizer. That's why we all were like lambs. That's why we were all so, you know, nothing bothered us much, you know. If they took the best friend, you never cried for it. My best friend from school, that I knew her from the moment I started to go to school, we always sat in the same bench, the two of us. And she was in my bunk. And one day she didn't come out to stand to be counted. And I know that she went out in the night a couple of times. Don't remember that she came back. And she didn't come back because she collapsed in the little room that we had in the back, also with buckets, you know, for the waste. Because otherwise they expected us to go then after the counting, but sometimes people had to go in between. And she collapsed there. She had dysentery, and she straight away went to the gas chamber, to the hospital. The hospital meant gas chamber. We were told never complain, never ask for the hospital, never say to anybody that you need something, you know, some medicine or something. Luckily, I went through it, and my friend also became very, very good friends. This girl who was older, she was very, very bright, and she was just my cup of tea. Also, everything is just so exacting. And she was there actually because her mother died when she was 11, and she grew up with her brother and quite a bit older brother and her father. And she was very independent. She was always messing around with the cook in the kitchen, so she knew how to cook everything. And I know how to eat everything, but cooking I was not very good at. I never cooked. And we had, you know, soup in the evening also. You know, you smarten up after a few days, so you don't want to be the very first in the queue for the soup, because you get only the thin soup. So you waited, you were so hungry, but you waited a bit so that the ladle will go into the thicker bits down below. And I even found half of a thumb size of potato in my soup once. And we found a few little bits of looked like meat, but I couldn't recognize it. It was sort of funny little thing. And one of the girls who came from the country, she said, "Oh, that's horse meat." Horse meat. Oh, well, whatever they gave you, you wanted to eat. You knew that that's the only way that you just might survive, because we started to have the selection. And people were just dropping the weight. That is just unbelievable. You know, I don't know how many calories we had in the day. Nothing. You know, just rubbish. In the morning, a bit of ersatz jam that we could put on our bread. As a loaf of bread like a brick, if you cut it into 7, that had to be enough for a whole day. And because it was so dense, that if you were clever and looked forward, you ate only half of it, because you knew that you'll be hungry later, so you had another piece that you could. It filled in a way because of its denseness. And the selection came, so clothes to be taken off, and in a goose farm, walk one after the other, the front of the couple of soldiers, the woman, I don't know, whatever rank she had, and also the couple, they stood there. And then the soldier said, "That's it, that was the end of you." And I always been very straight, and funny enough, I'm about 3.5 inches shorter than I used to be because of my spine. And I always carried myself straight, you know, shoulders back, chest up. In school you had to sit like that, you know, hands behind you, shoulders back, shoulders back, and a chest out, so nobody could fiddle, and you were sitting in a healthy position during the lesson. So I was used to that, so I walked straight up, never looked at them. I thought if I, you know, meet eye to eye, he might just pick on me. So I was never picked on. And my sister was between us, between my friend, her name was Elsie, and myself, so sort of between us, so that we could quick, and we went through, and we survived another day. Every 3 weeks or so we had to go to the showers. And we were told that the gas chamber is exactly the same. You know, there's no difference. The rosettes are, all those pipes, they pipe in the gas. And, you know, second time when we went, they gave a tiny little piece of soap into your hand. You know, somebody in the front of the door, piece of soap, and in you went. You had to leave all your clothes behind. They disinfected the clothes, and you got other ones also disinfected. But by then, you know, my first lot of clothes, which meant the big pajama, it was very well used because from the calf's length, it became a mini. Because every time we went to the loo, my friends wanted a piece. And it was so easy to tear along the stripes, you know, it was so worn that it was just hardly touched it. It was, everybody wanted a little piece of it. Nothing, no paper there, no nothing. But we were still used to it, that you are a human being and not an animal. So anyway, I got something else. And we went in with a little soap, and we also heard by then that the soaps are made out of juice. You know, the fat and all that. Because that's what the soap really came from animal fat. You know, washing soap, and that's it. And this was made from our people. So as soon as I went in, I just dropped it. And they locked the doors, and we stood there for a heart beating couple of minutes. What is going to come down? You know, you were so tense this short time while you were locked in, and nothing happened yet. But what will happen? Is it water? Is it gas? You didn't know. And when the water started to come, you know, another day we lived through, and so it went. And after a few months, I mean, they thinned out very well. The children's block was very well thinned out from the selections, and they started to have the selection more often. I mean, we were really getting so run down. I mean, they're just skeletons. And I always wanted to learn medicine. All my life I wanted to be a doctor. And the surgeon at that, I remember I sort of looked at everyone and I thought, my God, you can study that skeleton so well. It was like skeleton. We all were like skeletons, skin and bone. I thought to myself, I never knew that I had so many bones. I mean, you know, I looked at my father's books and I enjoyed them very much. And on top of it, just to make matters nicer, there were 2 or 3 very, very pregnant women. They placed them also to the children's block because they were also being get rid of. As soon as the baby is born, baby and mother go straight to the gas chamber. So across from us, there were, I think, 3 heavily pregnant women. One evening, one was giving birth. And I thought to myself, but I felt that I'm not just victim here. I am also the observer. Because I was just, quite unbelievably, just weighed it up. What are they doing? The mentality, the Germans who were really thought of as the most educated people by large. And because we were a German-speaking part of Hungary, that we, the second language, we had to learn German in school. We just couldn't believe it, that it can happen. And especially for us, because we were also very assimilant. And for us, all the stories of pogroms in Poland and Russia and all that, it was like, today you hear Bangladesh, and, so far removed from us. Because I'd never even seen anybody with peyote and the big black hat, and, like the Hasidim go around. So I just weighed it up, and I thought to myself, what brilliant mind the Germans have. It's not enough of what they do to those kids. But they put the pregnant woman also there to give birth. And you know it very well, that as soon as the child is born, they are both taken to the gas chamber. And you thought, well, how terrible that is really, because it's usually a very happy event. I mean, in normal circumstances, when somebody has got a baby, it's a happy event. And here, the baby is finishing the mother, or the mother is finishing the baby, or both of them are finished, let's say. And I thought that the brilliant mind who cooks up all this torture and all this emotional upheaval. But as I say, I really didn't feel anything within. I felt like I turned into stone or something. So I was watching everything, and in the same time, I was the victim as well, you know. And what else happened there? Slowly, I think, in about August, let me see, August, September, that time, the sea lager where we were, they started to empty all the lagers because the Russians were on the horizon. It took them a long time to get there because only in January they got to Auschwitz. But they really fought, you know, a long battle. And they started to empty Auschwitz. So the sea lager where I was, and many of the other, the women, the two children's block, we all had to pile out of the blocks. And again, a very big selection we had to go on. And we did, my friend and I, we were, you know, okay, and they selected my sister out. But there were so many people there that my friend pulled my sister's out, and she came with us as well. So they emptied this lager, and I forgot to tell you that the music usually played on. Whatever was going on, the music was playing on. You know, there were a band, and they sat there. As you came in through the gate, they sat there and played Beethoven, and just lovely classical music. And the mind boggles, really. So we had to go across the road. The ones who were selected, we had to go across the road to B-Lager, that was B. And B-Lager was already empty. The hospital was in the B-Lager. And from all these people who were still in the sea and were selected, they placed into the B-Lager. There were no bunks, so you had to lie on the floor. And we thought that maybe we are going to be taken to work. And we thought, well, we filled up 2 blocks, but lying on the floor, you know, some blankets or something. And in the morning we had to go out, be counted, back again. And we did nothing really. And we thought, well, they will probably take us to work. So we were there, I don't know how many weeks. I think Yom Kippur came, and Rosh Hashanah came, and Yom Kippur came. There were some very religious girls, and they were, you know, they knew about it. And they were praying and davening there in the corner, and that. Well, if that's what being chosen is, well, I don't think that I want to be that much chosen, you know. Because it is just not possible even to believe that we were there and the whole world just closed their eyes and nobody even, and everybody knew, because it's not possible that with all the spies and with all the planes and reconnaissance and whatever, that nobody knew what was going on in Germany. They all knew. And so we were counted, and we were there probably for 3-4 weeks. And then again a selection. So they selected again. They selected out quite a few, and my sister. So they took them to the hospital. which was in the same lager. And I, next morning, I mean, I cried, but I didn't feel it inside. I cried a few tears, not even that you would cry normally, just sort of, I don't know, just, it didn't go in deep. I think I was just really doped not out of my senses, because I saw everything and I noted everything, and it just didn't sink in, really. And next morning, we had to be counted again, and we had one person too many. And we knew who it was, because she told what happened. She was selected out the day before, then my sister. They were taken to the hospital, and the truck was waiting there. And I don't know, the workers, probably the Jews, were throwing dead bodies from the hospital, typhoid cases, half dead, a little bit still alive, or completely dead. They were throwing onto the trucks. And these ones, those girls who were selected out, I mean, they were hardly any girls, because I think my sister was the youngest of the lot, and then I, because the others were grown-ups. It was the whole lager that was selected for this changeover to be. And the girl was telling us that everybody had to, the ones who were the fresh ones, had to climb up onto the truck in the back. And what she did, she climbed under the truck. I mean, she went under it. And I thought to myself, all these half-dead bodies and the dead bodies and everything, and those poor kids who were still sane and they knew everything, and they had to climb on top of that. And I thought, I just cannot believe it. When you think into it, really, what happened, you don't want to think into it deeply, because it's just unbearable to think of, really. So, and she told us that. And when the truck left, the full truck, there she was, and it was nighttime. And she crept back. We were not very far, probably 2 blocks away, but the other blocks were empty. She crept back to her sisters. There were two of her sisters. She came back. So next day we were one too many. So we counted again, one too many. Then the highest ranking guy who was standing there with other soldiers and a couple said that the one who escaped from the hospital would stand up, please. Please, no, please. Just stand up. Nobody moved. We knew who it was, but how can you point a finger? So nobody moved. So she said, well, I want the one who came from the hospital last night back to get out of the others. And all quiet. And she said, you know what? My soldiers will shoot, decimate you. Every tent will be shot. So you thought, well, how do they go around it? The one who stands on the one in the 5, because we faced them. Or they start in the second and then they count out 10? Or is it in a proper order 10? Or how do they do the 10? Oh, when I thought of it, we got so far and we sort of thought that, oh, we are going to work or something. I said, no, we are going to finish off. I mean, every tent, we don't know who is the tent. When there were about 200, who is the tent? So then the girl came forward. Because the others who stood around her, they said to her, listen, you cannot take it on you. Whatever happens, and they took her, of course, again, to the next lot, to the hospital. So it was already going on end of October, something like that. And we had to march again for the showers. change of clothes and all that. So we said, now or never. I mean, this shower, whether it's a shower, we don't know. It was a shower, we always went to the showers. So we went to the showers, and it was a shower. And again, we got some newly disinfected rubbish. And I ended up with some Dutch cloaks, you know, the wooden cloaks. And it was freezing by then in October, you know. And we were high up north, absolutely freezing. So these cloaks, I mean, you know, with nothing in it. I was not used to it, wearing them. And anyway, we had to get into the wagons again, stuff them all in. And my heel started to bleed. One of the women gave me a piece of cloth, I don't know where from, probably also something from the skirt of her, to put it on my heel. So we were in the wagon, I don't know, probably 2 days. And the train stopped, and we got out, and we were taken, and it was Ravensbrück. Ravensbrück was Hitler's favorite resort, one of the favorite resorts. And we were marching there in the street, and these beautiful villas, you know, and we looked up, and it was late night too. Here and there you had still the lights on and the curtains. And I thought to myself, and it was snowing, and we were just freezing cold. And I thought to myself, all these rotten Nazis, you know.